What's up, everybody? It's Peter Tragos, the lawyer you know, and on this channel, we break down the trials and cases you care most about so you can understand how the American civil and criminal justice system works. And we try to make sure you understand what your rights are in every situation, which is why we try to walk you through the entire legal process while also answering your insightful questions along the way. And while it's not legal advice, it's always exciting. So buckle up for another episode of The Lawyer You Know. What's up, everybody, and welcome in here to a last minute live. We just heard everybody sounded the horn, put the bat signal out that Amber Heard has made an announcement on her Instagram, and this case may be over. I'm sure you are going to have a ton of questions, which we will answer. But we are going to read through Amber Heard's statement specifically from her mouth on Instagram, written by her, authored by her, published to the people. What does it say, right? Is it over? What happens to the appeals? How much did they settle for? Who's going to pay for it? How does this affect the other lawsuits with Amber Heard and her insurance company? Is there confidentiality? What can they talk about? And what is Johnny Depp going to say or do? Well, buckle up because this is going to be a very interesting video. If you have not subscribed yet, if you haven't followed us on Instagram, if you're watching there, make sure you give us a follow on Instagram and subscribe on YouTube and hit that like button so whoever wants to come and discuss this together with this community can come in for this video now. This community is so fun. I mean, I'm wearing a shirt from one of the subscribers they sent me today from Lisa. So I appreciate that. People are saying it's fuzzy. Let me see if I can fix that. All right. Let me know if the fuzziness gets better here. I'm waiting a couple minutes for people to join up so that when we read the statement Amber gave from Instagram, yeah, people are saying blurry. I'm working on it. All right, let me know if it's any better here. All right, much better, people are saying. Okay, all right, okay. Luckily, it's not really that big of a deal. You all know what I look like at this point, so you're more here for the content and what we're talking about. And we like you clear, people are saying here. All right, so when we go through and talk about this and answer all these questions, it's really important to figure out what a settlement actually means, right? Is this case settled once and for all? Is it over? Those are questions that are still to be answered. It seems like when you read through Amber's Instagram post that the answer to that is yes. But it wouldn't be the first time a client jumped the gun, and there are still some details to be hammered out. There's a lot of reporting going around what the details are of this settlement, how much it is, and who's paying for it and things like that. So let's start there before we get to Amber's words, because I'm going to wait till we get to 1,000 people in here before we get to Amber's actual words on Instagram. And if you hit that like button, we'll probably get to that 1,000 people quicker. So hit that like button if you haven't already. So when we talk about a settlement, all the reports have said that this is a settlement where Amber Heard has agreed to pay Johnny Depp. Guess how much, okay? This is funny, okay? Because this is a civil case. This is why I told you this is one of the reasons this case had so much appeal to me as a civil litigator who prosecutes these civil cases. I do some criminal defense. My dad's the big shot criminal defense attorney here. The rest of the lawyers in the firm, we really focus on civil cases on the plaintiff side. And as soon as this trial was over and they all started talking and people talking $10 million, $8 million, what are they going to settle for? And when we found out that Amber Heard had an insurance policy and the insurance company was paying for the lawyers the whole time, not a surprise. Did we find out? People are guessing $7 million, things like that. Well, when we found out that Amber Heard had $1 million insurance policy, you heard me say, that's what I would expect this case to settle for. I think it's going to settle. I think they're going to tender the $1 million to Johnny Depp, take care of his legal fees, whatever, or at least a portion of them. He's going to come out losing money at the end of this no matter what. But then when we add the fact that Amber Heard's insurance company was paying millions and millions of dollars to defend her in the first place, and then now to continue the appellate process. We've learned all that through all these other cases. That's why it's so important to get the full picture and not just narrow in on one case. An insurance company is almost always in the background in these civil cases. And that's exactly what happened here. And again, the $1 million settlement that is reported, again, not guaranteed. I haven't seen a document that says that yet, and we may never will. But that makes a lot of sense to me, that this is a civil case that settled for the policy limits after someone went and got a big jury verdict. And a little bit later in the video, I'm going to talk about what we've learned from the civil justice system just by following this case. And all of you that have followed this case have learned so much. And it's hard to understand from the outside. And it's hard as you're getting one detail at a time. And you can kind of feel the roller coaster a client goes through in a case like this. And we have to explain to our client, give it a second. Let's see what happens next. Give it a second. Just because this happened does not mean it's over, or does not mean this. Just because we got a $10 million verdict does not mean they're going to pay us $10 million. I said that from day one. A lot of people say that. I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm just saying we talked about this. We discussed this throughout the case, throughout this case, throughout the insurance cases, throughout the appeal. We have discussed all of this, but there are deadlines, and lawyers have to continue to do work to meet those deadlines. And if the lawyers are continuing to work, then they're continuing to get paid by Johnny Depp or by the insurance company, by Amber Heard, by somebody. So to offer a resolution means all those bills stop, which is a big part of why a lot of these civil cases do, in fact, settle, which is exactly what happened here. Now, which insurance company paid the $1 million? I don't know. Are they going to split it? What's the split going to be between the insurance companies? Who knows? But why do we think that this case is settled? We're at 1,100 people in here. So let's get to it. Let's hear from Amber Heard herself. And we'll talk about whether or not it was even appropriate that she posted it like this. Should there be a gag order? I see some people asking questions. Hit that like button because we're going over Amber's words here. This is from her Instagram account. After a great deal of deliberation, I have made a very difficult decision to settle the defamation case brought against me by my ex-husband in Virginia. She didn't say his name. Do we know who she's talking about? Context is important. I think this is the point of illustrating that you don't have to say somebody's name to defame them by implication. It's important for me to say that I never chose this. I defended my truth, and in doing so, my life as I knew it was destroyed. My truth, aka opinion, potentially constitutionally protected opinion, I think is what she's trying to throw in there. The vilification I have faced on social media is an amplified version of the ways in which women are re-victimized when they come forward. Now, I finally have an opportunity to emancipate myself from something I attempted to leave over 6 years ago and on terms I can't agree to. I have made no admission. So the context and the sequencing of her sentence is important. She was able to settle this case on terms that she can agree to. I have made no admission. No admission of fault, no admission of guilt, no admission of wrongdoing. And my guess is I would just love more than anything, and I think you guys would too, to see the emails back and forth as they discuss, here's our offer, $1 million, but she has to admit that she was wrong. She has to admit that she defamed him. And they say, no, how about $10 million? But she doesn't have to admit it. Because winning isn't just about money. Settlements aren't just about money. We've talked about this throughout the entirety of this case. There's so much more going on, and we all believe Johnny wanted that admission of guilt, that admission of wrongdoing on Amber's part more than the money. Turns out it looks like they're settling without that admission. This is not an act of concession. That's another term she agreed to. She's not conceding anything. And then next, there are no restrictions or gags with respect to my voice moving forward. I think there are going to be a lot of Amber Heard supporters that can spin this as a win for her. These are the more important factors of this case. There's $1 million policy. Her insurance company tendered $1 million. Big deal. If I told you the jury said you have to pay me $10 million and you end up only paying me $1 million, you could spin that as a win, right? And I know it was 10.35 minus 2, whatever. I'm just saying. But this is what happens all the time in our civil justice system. And I'm interested in whether or not you all think it's fair or not, generally speaking. There's more. I make this decision having lost faith in the American legal system, where my unprotected testimony served as entertainment and social media fodder. This is going to be something that is used and discussed when we determine whether or not there should be cameras and microphones in the courtroom in high-profile cases moving forward. When I stood before a judge in the UK, shocker, she's going to bring up the UK case, I was vindicated by a robust, impartial, and fair system where I was protected from having to give the worst moments of my testimony in front of the world's media, and where the court found that I was subjected to domestic and SV in the US. Domestic and SV. So do you agree with that? Do you think it is? I mean, obviously, I know you don't agree with how it worked there or that the judge was impartial, but do you agree that that judicial system protected the victim more? And the big issue with this is, silencing her voice as a victim, re-victimizing somebody, protecting the victims only works if it is the true victim. And that's the problem with, I think, this whole process that a lot of people have is nobody wants to re-victimize a victim. Nobody wants to embarrass a victim or make them go through the pain of what happened to them again. But we also have to protect the innocent and the wrongfully accused. And I think the United States does a better job of that than anybody, which we get condemned for a lot of times. In the US, however, I exhausted almost all my resources in advance of and during a trial in which I was subjected to a courtroom in which abundant direct evidence that corroborated my testimony was excluded, and in which popularity and power mattered more than reason and due process. I wonder if, because I've had cases where they've actually submitted something like this, a statement, as part of the settlement that had to be agreed upon before the settlement. I wonder if Johnny Depp's team knew she was going to say it exactly like this or not, because she is still continuing to do this, which to me is not the finality Johnny Depp wanted. There's still going to be an argument. She's still shedding doubt on the jury's verdict, on the outcome of this case, which I think is incredibly problematic. She's still saying what I said was true. There was a mountain of evidence that the court mistakenly or incorrectly did not allow into this trial. And that's the only reason I lost, because I spoke my truth. I was a victim. I was re-victimized. It's just pretty strong words that she's saying publicly and is allowed to say even after potentially a settlement happened in this case. In the interim, I was exposed to a type of humiliation that I simply cannot relive. Even if my U.S. appeal is successful, if my U.S. appeal is successful, is there a caveat? Is the appeal not over? Is the appeal not gone? Are we continuing forward with the appellate process? The best outcome would be a retrial where a new jury would have to consider the evidence again. And I simply cannot go through that for a third time. UK, US number one, she doesn't want to go through a third trial. Therefore, seemingly saying her appeal is over. And I'm sure if her appeal is over and they're settling for this amount, Johnny's appeal is also over. But we'll wait to hear what he has to say. Time is precious, and I want to spend my time productively and purposefully. For too many years, I have been caged in an arduous and expensive legal process, which has shown itself unable to protect me and my right to free speech. I cannot afford to risk an impossible bill, one that is not just financial, but also psychological, physical, and emotional. Women, now just women, not victims, women shouldn't have to face abuse or bankruptcy for speaking her truth. But unfortunately, it is not uncommon. In settling this case, I am also choosing the freedom to dedicate my time to the work that helped me heal after my divorce, work that exists in realms in which I feel seen, heard, and believed, and in which I know I can affect change. So, just for anybody asking out there, her saying this does not make the case settled. I believe the case is settled, and all reports is that it is settled. But her saying this doesn't mean it's settled, because there can be details that have not been agreed upon, not been a meeting of the minds. This could be something used in a motion to enforce a settlement if somebody were to back out. But she is not saying all of the details that are part of a settlement agreement. So it's just interesting. She's giving a lot of the details that are put in a way that makes it look like Johnny conceded a lot. I mean, the $7-ish million he conceded, going from 8.35 net to $1 million, whatever. But all the other concessions to me are more important and more surprising. I will not be threatened, disheartened, or dissuaded by what happened from speaking the truth. No one can and no one will take that from me. My voice forever remains the most valuable asset I have. I'd like to thank my outstanding appellate and original trial teams for their relentless hard work. That's a little shot to the media who thinks there was a lot of beef between Amber and her lawyers. I want to thank everyone who has supported me, and I turn my attention to the growing support that I've felt and seen publicly in the months since trial, and the efforts that have been made to show solidarity with my story. Again, doubling down, tripling down that she is a victim, a survivor of this abuse. Any survivor knows that the ability to tell their story often feels like the only relief, and I cannot find enough words to tell you the hope your belief in me inspires, not just for me, but for all of you. Thank you. See you soon. So again, this is just showing, and then we have a comment from Eve Barlow. Love you always, my warrior friend. This shows that she literally is continuing all of the argument. We've read her appeal together, and the main focuses of her appeal are how is this going to affect other women and the Me Too movement and other survivors. It's going to be horrible for them, she said in her appeal. She's saying in this Instagram statement. The mountain of evidence that the court didn't allow in for her truth to be told, her freedom of speech, what happened to her. She is the victim. And this trial was so unfair, but there was a more fair trial in the UK that she won. And she just wants to put this behind her and move forward with her family. And acting, apparently. I'm pretty surprised at this statement. I'll be honest. I am pretty surprised at the statement. There are some other details that we've heard. So we'll talk about some of the other details, and then I'll get to your question, and then we can kind of come back through this. But it seems as though the appeals are over from both sides, and the insurance company is going to pay the $1 million. We've also found out the insurance company paid the legal fees. One of the things we don't know is what's going to happen with those insurance cases. And as I've said, with almost every civil case, 90+% of civil cases settle. I think those insurance company cases are going to settle. And I think New York Marine's probably going to eat a chunk of the bill, but I bet it would be less than half. We may never even hear what that number is. But I think those cases will also settle and go away, because now it's just insurance companies paying lawyers to fight against insurance companies. So they will probably come together at some point and say, let's just settle this and be done with this as well. So if we're looking at what this settlement agreement seems to be from Amber Heard, a lot of wins on her side. But Johnny Depp got the win at trial, and money is exchanging hands going from Amber Heard to Johnny Depp. So in the court system and legally, Johnny Depp is still the victor. However, in the court of public opinion, I think this is less than a home run for Johnny Depp, because she is allowed to go through and say all the things she said in this statement. So what do we learn from the civil justice system? We learned that big verdicts don't always equal big money. And many times you can have a verdict of $10 million that ends up settling and you get paid $1 million. And these are all important things that we have to discuss with our client, like I mentioned off the top. Sometimes winning looks different. Sometimes it's a concession. Sometimes it's an admission. Sometimes it's money. Who pays for what? Some lawyers are on contingency fee. They get a piece of the settlement. Some lawyers are paid hourly by the individual client, and some are paid by the insurance company. Most are paid by the insurance company. Who pays the settlement? Most of the time, it's the insurance company. All of those things we discussed, and it was all conjecture or speculation or guessing when we did these videos and we were talking about the insurance company lawsuits and we were talking about the appeals. And I said, I think this case is going to settle. That's just the only way that really makes sense. Everybody was asking about the bond. Why didn't she post the bond for the appeal? What's going to happen here? And I said, listen, most of the time, these cases settle and none of that stuff ends up mattering. And that's what happened in this case. The deadlines. What about the deadlines? What about she didn't turn over her phone? What about she didn't turn over the metadata? None of it matters when the case settles, and most of the time the case settles. But all of those things stack up on each side to give Johnny's side more leverage at one point, then Amber's side has more leverage, and that's how a civil case goes until at the end of the day, everybody's had enough and you settle the claim. And these cases can be drawn out and drag on forever and ever and ever. But it's important to have that communication with your lawyer so they know what is most important. Is it the money? Is it the admissions? Is it the confidentiality? Will there be confidentiality? Will there be a settlement agreement that we get to review together? That would be kind of cool to see what's in there. No gag orders. No admissions for either side. Now, I will tell you, 99% of releases or settlement agreements have, this is not an admission of guilt. This is a doubtful or disputed claim. That type of language is commonly in settlement agreements. A lot of people saying, I'll believe it when I see it signed and in writing. All right, let's get to some of your questions. Chloe is a new member. Welcome, Chloe. Sue, okay, I have questions. Does Johnny have to pay the $2 million in the insurance lawsuits over? Highly doubt. Now, we don't know the answer to this. Highly doubtful Johnny Depp is going to have to pay a single cent to Amber Heard. The insurance lawsuits will likely settle if they haven't already, but we don't know the answer to that at this point. NY Mom, anybody notice there was not one single mention of doing this so she can spend more time with her daughter, the daughter that she doesn't really have? Gloria Smess from Instagram. The source of all legitimate legal documentation from the horse's mouth, as they say, right? Verified. The blue check mark, which means different things on different platforms now, I guess. But yeah, seems like this is real from all reports. I checked a bunch of different sources and it seems like this is real. If not, they got me. I'll just say they got me. Nicholas Stero. In the US, she has to be careful. The UK is a whole other story. There, she, by proxy, has a verdict in her favor. Yeah, but you're allowed to disagree with verdicts. I will just tell you. You're allowed, in the US, you're absolutely allowed to say the jury got it wrong. The judge got it wrong. I totally disagree with them. I stand by, what I said, whatever. You're allowed to say that. Sherry Atkins. I know the case is over, but my question is Amber Heard going to stop completely? I feel she is really not done. Is there legal documentation stating she can never continue degrading Johnny? Again, maybe there's something specific in there that she can't defame him again, or she can't tell these stories. It seems like it's not in there though, right? I mean, she basically reiterated it. She basically said there's no gag order. I don't see a lot of things handcuffing what she can say in the future, but maybe they put some specifics in there. You can get very creative. Again, something we've mentioned a lot. You can get very creative in settlement agreements. Kat Yarb, I'd sue her again for the Instagram post. Dave Heaton is a new member. Lisa Murphy. So is it possible that Johnny and his team can still come back in this settlement and that she can't continue talking about Johnny and her lies? Is it possible she can still write her lie book? Again, these are questions we don't know if we don't see the settlement agreement, but it doesn't seem like we hear anything that she can't write a book about this or that she can't make money off of this trial. Wouldn't it be something if they all made money off of making a movie of this trial or something? But I don't see, I mean, she said no gag order, no admission, not silencing her voice. Her voice is all she has left. That's her most important tool. Gamer Soldier 100. I'll believe this when I see it accepted at court. So there are certain settlement agreements that the court does have to approve. This is unlikely to be one. Usually that's in federal court or when a minor or somebody that's incapacitated is involved. But in a state court case where you have a jury verdict and you have an appeal going on, if all the sides agree there's a settlement and they sign a confidential settlement agreement and release, all of the cases can be dismissed. The appeals, the judgment, you can either say that the judgment has been satisfied or dismiss it so it doesn't go on a record. There's a bunch of different ways to deal with final judgments after civil lawsuits, but I don't think this is going to be one that the court has to approve. But we will for sure see publicly this. I'm sure there's going to be more to cover in the coming days. It does kind of throw off my week. We were planning on doing Johnny's reply brief at some time. At some point this week, we were planning on doing part 2 of Johnny Depp's lawyers, which I think we can still do that interview because it may be even more interesting with this context. So we'll probably still do that this week. Azam, thank you so much for the super sticker. Maureen Scott, question. Do you think JD would agree to this, putting no gag order on her even? I think he was probably discussing this with his lawyers. His lawyers are like, here are the pros, here are the cons. She's probably never going to have more than $1 million. We can keep this going for years and years. They don't ever have to agree to a gag order. Just because you got a jury verdict, we could go win and she could have to pay you the $8 million. She'll go into bankruptcy and whatever. And, there's never really going to be a gag order. That's not a guarantee because that's part of the trial. You don't necessarily get a gag order. You don't get a confidentiality order. All you get's the money, right? So if they go forward, they win all the appeals years from now. At the end of the day, they say, okay, Amber Heard, you owe Johnny Depp $8.3 million or $10.3 million. Johnny Depp owes you $2 million, whatever it may be. That's the final order. Everybody has to pay lawyers for years. Still no gag order, still no confidentiality, still no admission of guilt that can be forced just from the jury's verdict. D-Trug. My guess is JD wants it to be over and really doesn't care about the or what she has to say now. He may feel he's exposed her lies and he doesn't need her admission to move on. I feel like this is the only answer. That he feels like this is enough. He got the jury verdict. The court of public opinion and the PR in this case is so heavily in his favor that he's saying, you know what? That's it. I'm done. Rosemary. I don't understand why Johnny would agree to her being allowed to say all that. The trial determined she wasn't abused, but the abuser. This bothers me. I think a lot of people are going to be upset at what her public statements can be even after this settlement. R-Dub. Don't we still have to wait for the agreement to be published? No, the agreement does not have to be published. It can be a confidential settlement agreement. Could this just be her preemptive statement to get her side out before the agreement is finalized and she can't say this stuff? Potentially, but then Johnny Depp's team could for sure pull the agreement. If in the agreement it says she is not going to say this stuff publicly and she goes and says all this stuff publicly before the agreement's even signed, then it's going to blow up in her face. And my guess is they're not going to have a settlement. So that is still possible, but it seems like the reporting on this has been pretty good and they've gotten out ahead of it at this point. Thank you, Catherine. And thank you so much, Andrea. Rosie asks, so if there's no gag order, does this mean he can sue her again if she continues the despicable lies? Potentially, if there's more defamation and more damages, then he could potentially file another defamation case or claim based on these statements. Creed, how possible is it that the settlement falls through because of this statement if there is a term about non-defaming each other again? Well, if there is a gag order in the settlement and she says there's not, if there is an admission of guilt or liability in the gag order and she says there's not, two things can happen. Either it can be pulled and they can, start over negotiating again, or Johnny Depp's team can get some kind of agreement to publish it and say, look, she did admit it in this agreement that she signed. So there's all sorts of things that can still happen in this case, but it really seems like it's over. I don't think Amber Heard would want, personally, it's just my opinion, I don't think she'd want to open herself up to all this all over again by making this statement, knowing that it's just going to start the charade over again. He's going to file another lawsuit and do all this again. Somebody said, you think they might get back together? I don't think so. Deb, how do they determine which court to sue in? Will they go to Virginia again? It'll depend on where the defamation or statement it happens, if it happens again. But if she violates a settlement agreement that they agreed to on this Virginia case, then the choice of law and the proper jurisdiction on breaking that settlement agreement or breaching that contract that they agreed to post this case would be in Virginia, yes. Yeah, people are already saying a lot of websites are spinning this as this was just on our news, Jackie said, NBC clip. Okay, so I mean, it's happening right now. I mean, this is literally happening right now. I tried to jump on, give you our breakdown, and seeing, exactly what's happening. And again, this could be spun a lot of different ways. I think legally speaking, we know the answer. Johnny Depp won the trial here. The jury did not believe Amber Heard. The jury believed Amber Heard defamed Johnny Depp, which means told lies about him to hurt him and did it knowingly or recklessly. But that Adam Waldman also did the same thing to Amber Heard and damaged her. And Adam Waldman, as a mouthpiece for Johnny Depp, then connects that to Johnny Depp. But at the end of the day, when I believe only money is going to exchange hands from Amber Heard's insurance to Johnny Depp, that is a legal win every way you look at it from Johnny Depp. But like I said, you cannot force or guarantee certain things in the civil justice system, which again, you are learning here. We're learning together. You can't force somebody to admit that they are wrong. Same thing in a criminal case. You know how many people are on death row or in prison for life or in prison for some period of time that still maintain their innocence? And they're allowed to do that. Nobody can force them to now stand up there and say you are guilty, but they are legally adjudicated guilty. And Amber Heard legally lost this case. There is a judgment that she lost this case. You can say the same about Johnny Depp on one of the 3 counts, but overwhelmingly Amber Heard lost on all 3 counts. 1 million too low. I hope whatever was agreed to that would persevere. I mean, maybe Amber Heard will do something underhanded. It does feel too low when you think of a $10 million verdict, but when you think about that, the policy was $1 million. A lot of times that's how it happens. When they're not offering you good money and you go try the case and you beat the policy, sometimes they're like, fine, now you can have the policy. Now, most of the time in our experience, and we just had a case where we tried it and got, 5 times the policy at trial. And that's what we ended up settling for, was just less than 5 times the policy. Actually, just more than 5 times the policy, because we got attorney's fees and costs and stuff on it as well. But they wanted to just settle for the policy after trial. And a lot of times that's what happens, but you have to set up things in a legal way that you're able to get more if you do go get a verdict like that. And in this case, it looks like they're just getting the policy. Now, there could be something where they pay part of Johnny's legal fees or something like that. Ghost Whisperer, hi from India. Always been a part of the Rewatch crew, but first time catching you live from India. What's up, Ghost Whisperer, and welcome. Welcome to the live. Yeah, this was wild. Last minute, as soon as I saw it on Instagram, obviously I came in, it's Monday morning, got a lot of work done first thing. But then when I saw all the messages flood in over the last hour, I said, oh, wow, I need to jump on this now. We already have a live set and prepped for 3 o'clock, but I really wanted to come talk to you about this, get this out there so everybody can know kind of my thoughts on how I think it's going, where I think it's going, what I think it means. And I expect now we're going to get more and more details about the settlement. My guess is we'll probably hit this a couple times this week as we get more details, because it seems like there is interest with 2,500 of you on here. Again, go ahead and hit that like button if you haven't already. I'm going to answer a few more questions before I sign off for my next appointment here. People are saying finally she got good legal advice to settle the case. It seems like both sides, to me, were advised to settle this case. And they can be advised to do so for 2 very, very different reasons. And there are a lot of you in the chat that I know are Johnny Depp supporters saying this is a loss for Johnny. I don't know why he did this. He shouldn't have done it. There are a lot of different reasons why you should still, or why you would still probably want to settle a case when you're Johnny Depp in this situation, especially because overwhelmingly in the public, he has regrouped and is now on the up instead of on the down. Maureen, how come AH's lawyers have to pay when she lost her insurance company? Because when you pay for an insurance policy, That is the purpose for the insurance policy, to then pay out instead of you having to pay yourself. It's a protection of your assets. And that's what happened in this case. Satu said, this is the perfect time for a live. Began just past 6 p.m. for me. Well, awesome. I try to do different times so more people can kind of jump on, but in my schedule, it happens to be the same time a lot. ACare 15, a single IG post from a proven liar is the final word. Really? I mean, I don't know what you say, final word. I highly doubt this is going to be the final word. This is just more of a breaking of the news coming from Amber Heard's mouth, since she's one of the few people that would actually know. And it's pretty much an admission of a loss. When you're appealing the case, let's think about it from the flip side, right? And why this is a loss for Amber Heard. You're appealing the case. You're saying they got it wrong. You're saying it was totally unfair with the mountain of medical evidence they didn't let come in. You're saying everything you said was true. You're saying they're trying to re-victimize and silence victims, yet you're paying a verdict you lost. You're paying a judgment against you that the jury found against you, saying what you said wasn't actually true and you defamed this person. You're paying that verdict. That is admitting a loss, in my opinion, legally. Now, with her public statements, she can continue to carry on, it seems like. What did Camille say? American Dreamer said, I don't know. We'll find out. She has conceded nothing, MJ said. Rebecca O, does this make her uninsurable? Who the heck knows what insurance companies are going to do? Oh, Camille and Ben's statement. Here we go. Sarah Beth. We are pleased to formally close the door on this painful chapter for Mr. Depp, who made clear throughout this process his intent to bring the truth to light. So this is apparently the statement. Just got here. Did you see the TMZ article? Let's look this up. Oh, continued. Here we go. Sarah Beth is on it for us. Continued. This was never about the money. The jury's unanimous decision and the judgment in favor against Miss Heard remain fully in place, and the payment of $1 million reinforces her acknowledgement of, from TMZ. Here we go. Hey, this is what happens here. This is what happens when you just go live. You know what I'm saying? Just go live and figure out the rest later. Acknowledgement of the legal system's rigorous pursuit of justice. Thank you, Sarah Beth. Let me just read here to make sure we got it all. Oh, wow. Okay, so let's read from TMZ. We're just getting all the hot, just the best. Wikipedia is probably going to be next. We started with Instagram. Now we're at TMZ. I think Wikipedia is going to be next as our source. A source close to Johnny Depp tells us he'll be making a pledge followed by a contribution. That's a little... Followed by a contribution to several charities using the $1 million. Because again, getting some goodwill and charity off that $1 million is going to go way further than that in his bank account. Contrary to what Amber Heard says, our source tells us the judgment can still be used against her in the future if she repeats the defamatory allegations. Repeats the defamatory allegations, yes, but she can also have new defamatory allegations where he can file another lawsuit against her, which is interesting. Depp's attorneys, Camille Vasquez and Ben Chu, tell us, we are pleased to formally close the door on this painful chapter for Mr. Depp, who made clear throughout this process his intent to bring the truth to light. They continue, this was never about the money. The jury's unanimous decision and the judgment in his favor against Ms. Heard remain fully in place, and the payment of $1 million reinforces her acknowledgement of the legal system's rigorous pursuit of justice. So yes, Sarah Beth was on point. That's wild. So more details. Johnny Depp, he's going to pledge and donate the $1 million. Some people saying I would reject this offer if I was Johnny Depp. Yes, me too. The chat resources. Anything else breaking right now? Let me know. And yes, hit that like button for some Christmas love. This is wild. It's like a Christmas present here. Johnny Depp can all be put behind him, right? And for Amber Heard and her supporters, it can all be put behind her. So a Christmas present for everybody, that the stress and misery of this legal process can be gone. so many cases resolved by the end of the year, just so you know, like right before the end of the year, this insurance company probably had reserves and they were like, listen, if we can just get this off our books now, boom, we're done. Pretty wild. Somebody's out there gifting free memberships for Christmas. O2 Low has received one. Very nice. Dana Gorham. So she is only going to pay $1 million instead of the 8 point, I think it was 3.5 million, correct? Yes, Dana, and she's not going to have to pay any of it. Seems like her insurance company, where she has a $1 million policy that she paid for, they are going to tender that policy. Now, Brianna, does the $1 million settle the judgment? Seems like, based on Ben Chu and Camille Vasquez's statement as well, yes, this is going to fully satisfy that. And we're going 8.35 as a net judgment. It's actually 10.35 for Amber to pay Johnny and $2 million for Johnny to pay Amber. If you take the net from that, it's 8.35, but it seems like this $1 million, and we talked about it after this case ended. You can settle this case any which way. You can get creative. You can say $1 million. You can say you pay me $2 million and I pay you $1 million and that net's $1 million, whatever you want to do. And then all the other ancillary parts like gag orders and admissions of guilt and all of that all come in to the settlement agreement. And it seems like that's what's happening right now. People are saying, does Johnny have to pay the $2 million? Highly doubtful. I would say absolutely not, but I haven't seen confirmation of that just yet. But that $1 million is not a self-depleting policy where, meaning if it was paying towards the lawyers and it would eat into that $1 million, no, they pay lawyers above and beyond the $1 million, because we've heard $5, $6, $7 million in attorney's fees paid by Amber Heard's insurance company. That's a totally separate deal to the actual policy, the liability policy that she got, which it seems like, and I told you when we read it, I said, listen, this is unfair to Amber Heard, right? This was unfair to Amber Heard. I think that if I bought this policy, I would think it would cover me for defamation. And it seems like that insurance policy is going to cover her for defamation. And it works out for Johnny too, right? He gets a payment to him from Amber Heard, satisfying that judgment, a legal win for Johnny Depp. And now he can donate that to very good charitable causes. And I'm sure we will hear more about that in the future. Jennifer, yes, this would make the appeals also go away. Yeah, people saying he doesn't need the money. Emma, I love these breaking news live shows, hectic and exciting. It's kind of wild for me, okay? Lawyers like to be more prepared. This is probably the least prepared video I've had all year. But it is kind of fun to talk about. I mean, but this one, it's like we know so much about this case already because of all the background that we've done. So, and the chat's so nice and like awesome to deal with in these situations where new stuff's coming up. Because if you say something that's, wrong or hasn't been updated yet, or just gets updated, has actually changed their understanding, and they just let me know in the chat instead of coming with fire and brimstone. West Egg, a pledge, such a shot at Amber. Yes, a not so subtle shot via TMZ, which is interesting, right? I said that was from TMZ, right? Isn't that Amber's spot? Shaylin Lukic. After you said Four Christmases was a favorite, it was on TV, DVR'd it to watch this week. Can't wait to hear how much you like it. ICU is also a new member. Cynthia, you've got to rewatch this one. It's pretty interesting, the stuff that's happening right now. Folks are really friendly here, Rebecca O. Really friendly. And that's what we try to do. Like, enough misery is going on in the world and enough misery is in the content of these cases. We try to keep it enjoyable, good learning experience here. And Ashley's breaking more news. TMZ has no loyalty. They're loyal to the almighty dollar. The Sisterverse podcast, cool, is a new member to the crew. Kelly B. Ing. So for those of you joining a little bit later, Amber Heard announced in an Instagram post that she is settling all of her claims with the defamation case with Johnny Depp, agreeing, not in her Instagram post, but in other reports, $1 million going from Amber Heard to Johnny Depp. But she said that she got all the terms she wanted, basically. No gag order, no admission of guilt. She can continue to have her voice and tell her story, basically, is what she's saying in the Instagram post. So she is already spinning it as a win. Legally, it is a win for Johnny Depp, but we'll see how it turns out in the court of public opinion. And she also mentioned the mountain of evidence and how she should have won the appeal and how she won in the UK and she didn't want to have to go through a third trial. Brianna is calling it a PR stunt. Daphne said, pity you didn't dress up as a pirate. All right. This was interesting. Michelle C., the friendliness of your chat is absolutely a reflection of you, Peter. Well done. Well, thank you, Michelle. And I think it's vice versa. I think it goes both ways. I think, we all help each other learn how to navigate these waters and the proper filters to have, and how to appreciate people that we may disagree with or be different than. Those are all positive things in here. And in this chat, and especially in the topics that we discuss. Okay. I promise you, we will do more of this week. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Tragos Law. Get any questions or comments, send articles there about this. We will continue to update this even daily if we have to. It's going to be a slow content week. At 3 p.m. today, in about 3 hours and 10 minutes, we are going to be talking more about the Idaho case, the students over there in that tragedy. More stuff is happening there, the angles of what the lawyers like in that case. So we still are going to do that. It was planned. But for now, I got to get back to work. So I appreciate all of you jumping in and joining me. This was wild, and I wouldn't want to share it and discuss it with anybody but you. I didn't call, text, nobody else like in my actual life about this case. I wanted to come talk about it with you all because we've been grinding through this thing forever, it seems like. So I appreciate you. Hit that like button and share this to anybody that you know is interested in this case, different time zones or whatever, so they can get to the bottom of what's happening as well. But for now, I'm out of here. I'll see you later today.